they have filed the attendance at the time in this international webinar in taking place. Good afternoon and the best wishes for all us. While offering thanks to Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala on Saturday, November 21st, 2020, there will be an opening ceremony for the international webinar entitled Virtual International Multidisciplinary Conference on Sustainable Practice in 2020. The title is Developing Eco-Friendly and Sustainable Transportation, organized by Faculty of Law, Universitas 11 Maret, and Railways Indonesian Corporate. We would like to thank all of you, ladies and gentlemen, who have agreed to participate in this webinar. Has been present among us Aldin of the Faculty of Law, Universitas 11 Maret, Profesor Dr. Igusti Ayu Ketutrahmihandayani, SHMM, keynote speaker, Mr. Didi Hartantio, SAMBA, Vice President of Director Indonesian Railways, and speaker first, Associate Professor Muhammad Rizal Palil from University Kebangsaan Malaysia, and second, Mas Pungki Hindrawijaya, SH Magister Legal Study PhD from Curtin University Australia, and third, Dr. Hilary Teknan from Sorbonne University, France. Ladies and gentlemen, the stepping on the opening of the event will be delivered by Dean of Faculty of Law Universitas 11 Maret, as well as officially opening the event, which we respect Professor Dr. Igusti Ayu Ketutrahmihandayani, SHMM, to give an opening remark, please.
Yeah, thank you.
Time is yours.
Yeah, thank you very much, Mbak Fatma Najica. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. The Honorable Bapak Didi Hartantio, SAMBA, President Director, Indonesian Railways Corporation. The Honorable Associate Professor Dr. Muhammad Rizal Khalil from University Kebangsaan Malaysia. The Honorable Associate Professor Dr. Hilary Teknan from Sorbonne University, France, and the Honorable Mas Pungki Hendra Wijaya, SH MLEC Stat PhD from Faculty of Law, Curtin University, Australia. The Honorable Dr. Lego Karjoko as a Vice Dean, Faculty of Law, Universitas 11 Maret. The Honorable Ibu Dr. Erna Diah Kusumastuti as a moderator, and Master of Ceremony, Ibu Dr. Fatma Ufatu Najica, all participants and all committee. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I would like to welcome all of you to our international conference. Thank you to every one of you for being here today. Let me begin by giving you a warm welcome to Developing Eco-Friendly and Sustainable Transportation International Conference. Would like to express my appreciation to President Director Indonesian Railways Corporation, Bapak Didi Hartantio, SAMBA, who help and support Faculty of Law, Universitas 11 Maret, make this conference and as a keynote speech in this conference. And also Prof. Rizal Palil, Prof. Teknan, and Pak Dr. Pungki. Thank you very much. We couldn't have done without you. In today's international conference, our agenda is to focus on these topics: developing eco-friendly and sustainable transportation that managed by Administrative Law and Energy Research Group, Faculty of Law, Universitas 11 Maret. Many low carbon transport strategies can help achieve other economic, social, and environmental objectives. These include improving access to mobility, reducing traffic, saving consumer money, supporting economic development, increasing public health and safety, reducing air and noise pollution. Based on void shift improve approach and case study from Germany, Colombia, Singapore, the author shows that aiming for low carbon transport does have significant and quantifiable co-benefits. I'm sure that today would be full of learning, and I hope this event will help us to build green lifestyle. That's all for me. Thank you very much for listening. Terima kasih. Matur nuwun. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Terima kasih.
Waalaikumsalam.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you, Professor Ayu. And then stepping on the core on even the international webinar, virtual international multidisciplinary conference on sustainable practice 2020, and the title Developing Eco-Friendly and Sustainable Transportation. And previously, I will read curriculum vitae Dr. Erna as a moderator in the ceremony. Erna Diah Kusumawati, employee in lecturer in International Law Department, Faculty of Law, 11 Maret University, December 2003 to present. Education, PhD, University of Groningen, 2020 up to 2014, 2020, and LLM in International Specialization in Human Rights Law, University of Groningen, the Netherlands, 2010 to 2011, and Master of Law in Business Law in Gajah Mada University, Indonesia, and Bachelor of Law in 11 Maret University, Indonesia, in on 2995 up to 1999, and there's many more publications. First, Michael Fiors and Erna Diah Kusumawati. The title is The International Right to Housing Efficient and the Obligation to Provide Alternative Accommodation and Comparison of Indonesia in the Netherlands, 2020, published at Asia Pacific Journal on Human Rights and the Law of Forthcoming Issue. And writing in of Diah Erna Kusumawati, in the title is Realizing Human Rights at the Adequate Housing in Indonesia Through Accountability as a Process in of Dr. Field Thesis of University of Groningen 2020, and many more. She is publication in the Scopus. And then we'll be greeted by Dr. Erna Diah Kusumawati SHM Hum LLM as a moderator. We invite. Time is yours.
Yeah, thank you, Ms. Icha, for the introduction. I would like to ask whether my voice is already heard clearly or not yet.
Clearly.
Yes, I am
Okay,
heard.
great, thank you. Good afternoon to all honorable speakers, the Dean, Professor Ayu, and also the Vice Dean of Faculty of Law, the Head of Postgraduate Programs of Faculty of Law, and to all participants. Welcome to this international webinar on developing eco-friendly and sustainable transportation, held by a research group on administrative law and energy law, Faculty of Law, Universitas 11 Maret. I would like to thank you all for participating in this event. My name, as introduced by Ms. Ica, is Serna Kusumawati, and I am delighted to be here moderating the international webinar, which has chosen a very crucial topic in this era, which is related to the 2030 common goals of the international community called 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development. We are all aware that Sustainable Development Goals are adopted in 2015 by all the United Nations member states. The Sustainable Development Agenda provides a shared blueprint for peace and prosperity for people and the planet, now and into the future. The agenda contains 17 interlinked goals that serve as the heart of the goals. SDGs, nouns it is called, urgently call for action by all countries, developed or developing countries in a global partnerships. All countries recognize that to achieve such goals, they must hand in hand, working together, adopting strategies that improve health and education, reduce inequality, and spur economic growth for all, while tackling climate change and working to preserve our oceans and forests. Speaking about climate change, countries around the world realize the importance of changing the use of conventional energy to save the world in the future. Continuing the use of conventional method by using fossil fuels to produce energy is indeed inconsistent with the goals. To reduce the pace of climate change, countries have raced to switch into a more renewable and sustainable energy. This includes to switch energy to be used in the transportation system. Today's webinar will discuss the complexity of issues emerging in providing sustainable and eco-friendly transportation as a means to achieve one of the sub-goals of the SDGs. I would like to share with you the 5 experts of today's international webinar. We are very pleased to have a keynote speaker, Mr. Didi Hartianto, SA MBA. He is standing in as the President Director of PT KAI Indonesia. Welcome, sir. Welcome, Mr. Hartianto. I would also to welcome our 3 honorable speakers. The first one is Dr. Muhammad Rizal Palil. He is an associate professor in Faculty of Economics and Business, University Kebangsaan Malaysia. We are very delighted to have you. Second, we also have Mas Pungki Hendra Wijaya, SH, Master of Legal Studies, PhD. Mr. Wijaya received his PhD from Curtin University, Australia, and he also works there as a lecturer and researcher. And then the third one, we have with us as well, Dr. Hilary Tegnan from Sorbonne University, France. I hope I pronounced your name correctly. Thank you very much for being with us today.
A pleasure. Correct.
What will happen is we will have first our keynote speech for 30 minutes and then followed by the presentation of our 3 speakers. Each speaker will have 20 minutes of presentation time, and after we hear all the speakers' presentation, we will have a Q&A session. As the moderator, I will keep on track on the time, and therefore I will provide a reminder at 5 minutes before a presentation ends. I hope such reminder will not cause any inconvenience in your presentation. Let me do just a little bit of housekeeping here. I think all participants are aware now to please put your microphone muted all the time if you are not in time of speaking. Also, I would like to remind our participants to prepare some questions or remarks. There are 2 possibilities in asking questions or giving remarks. Participants can type their questions in the Q&A section or in the chat room in the Zoom, and I will read the questions on your behalf. In addition, we will have the opportunity to open the floor for everyone who wishes to speak. Just please use the feature of raise hand in Zoom. And if you have the time to deliver your questions directly to the speakers, please mention your name and organization and to whom are your questions addressed to, so that the committee will be able to make a list of questions. Without further ado, let us begin with our keynote speaker, Mr. Didi Hartianto, SAA, MBA. As I said previously, Mr. Hartianto is the President Director of PT KAI Indonesia. He received his Bachelor of Economic from the University 11 Maret, this university, and his MBA was from the Daniel Schools of Business, Denver University, Colorado, the United States of America in 1995. He has been working in the Indonesian Railways Company since 2016, and prior that, he worked several years as a financial executive in a state-owned bank, which is Bank Mandiri. So please welcome Mr. Hertianto, and 30 minutes times is yours.
Thank you, Ibu Erna. Does my sound clear? Ibu Erna?
Yes,
okay,
it is clear,
okay.
Pak Hertianto.
Baik. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Excellencies, Honorable Ibu Profesor Dr. Igusti Ayu Ketut Rahmi Handayani, SHMM, Dean of Faculty of Law, Universitas 11 Maret, Associate Professor Muhammad Isal Palil, University Kebangsaan Malaysia, Honorable Mas Pungki Indra Wijaya, SH, Master Legal Study and PhD, Curtin University, Australia, and Mr. Hilary Teknan, Dr. Hilary Teknan from Sorbonne University, France. Thank you. And Pak Lego dan para Deputy Dean, Faculty of Law, Universitas 11 Maret, and all invitees in this webinar. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Very happy that I could join in this webinar, international webinar. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you to all of you for being here at this special international webinar with the theme of developing eco-friendly and sustainable transportation. First of all, I would like to thanks to Ibu Professor Dr. Igusti Ayu Ketut Rahmi Handayani, SHMM, for giving me a chance to take part in this great webinar, since this webinar is very relevant to our business in transportation. This topic is very interesting considering the issue of global warming that has become a major concern for every state in this world. The effect of global warming causes climate change and increases the earth temperature, causing imbalance of the ecosystem, which may harmful to people and the society. The whole world is trying to minimize the effect of global warming, including Indonesia. PT Kereta Api Indonesia, railways industry in Indonesia, as railways operator, are also concerned with this issue. I would like to inform you that the vision of Kereta Api Indonesia is to provide the best transport ecosystem solution for Indonesia. So our vision is to provide the best transport ecosystem solution for Indonesia. As you know, train and wagon as mass transportation vehicle with their ability to carry a large number of people and logistics can be considered as eco-friendly transportation. In coping with the global warming issue above, Kereta Api Indonesia is proven to reduce emissions since the train produces less pollutants in its operation than any other transportation mode. As an example, I would like to illustrate. In operating coal freight transport in South Sumatra, usually Kereta Api Indonesia carries 3,000 tons of coals per train set, which consists of 60 carriages with the weight of 50 tons each. We only use 2 locomotives, which consume of fuel of 4,629 liters per transport with low emission. If we compare this transport to the trucks, with capacity of 30 tons each, we will require 150 trucks with around 22,125 liters of fuel consumption and significantly larger emission. As you can see, we make a big difference in reducing energy consumption and pollution compared to other road-based transports. We conclude that we can save the fuel consumption approximately 79%, and this drastically reduces emission of carbon of about 99%. And of course, we can help the government in reducing the cost of roads maintenance that is going to be a hot issue for every year. By running the intercity passenger transport operation, we also perform fuel and pollution reduction since its capacity is larger than bus transport. At 450 to 600 people per car per train set, compared to the bus, which only holds about 50 people, we also use biodiesel, we call it P30, in generating in the power engine. In handling commuter train, our subsidiary, PT Kereta Komuter Indonesia, has succeeded in transporting around about 1.1 million people per day to support the mobilization of communities in around Jabodetabek. Our commuter trains use electricity in its operation and also assist the government in addressing traffic congestion. Recently, Kereta Api Indonesia, through its subsidiary, has expanded the electrification scheme for commuters in the area of Central Java. So in a short time, we will start commuter operation in Yogyakarta to Solo. So actually, the electricity from Yogyakarta to Solo has been installed and will be operated soon from Yogyakarta to Klaten by the end of this month. And by beginning of the next year, we would transport KRL from Yogyakarta to Solo. So Yogyakarta to Solo is the second largest city that operate electricity train after Jakarta. Currently, we are collaborating with the provincial government of DKI Jakarta in support of integration of transport in Jabodetabek region. We want to build an integration between modes of transport, both rail-based and non-rail-based, to make the station as a center of integration. The integration of intermodal transport is expected to lead the comfort and the convenience in supporting the mobilization of community. In addition, the company has also received an assignment from President of Indonesia to operate the light rapid transit LRT in Jabodetabek area, which is now under development from Cibubur, Cawang to Duku Atas, and also from Bekasi Timur, Cawang and Duku Atas, which consists of about 42 kilometers, and it could carry around 450,000 people every day. So it also expected to attract the people surrounding and to change their behavior in using the public transport instead of private vehicle in order to develop eco-friendly transportation by reducing the emission with its facilities, convenience, and still maintaining the aspect of safety and security. With all aspects so that we can improve the quality of life for the community. In the end, it will increase ridership on the use of commuter line for its sustainability. We also started to conduct an assessment on the potential of use of autonomous rapid transit ART and Yogyakarta and in Bali to support the mobilization of the people there, especially to attract tourism in the region. ART, autonomous rapid transit, has several advantages with its flexibility, low-cost investment in infrastructure, and also environmentally friendly because it uses electricity as propulsion. Taking the conclusion from above, Kereta Api Indonesia give a lot of all benefits to the social economy for the society and the government. We are the greatest in supporting the mobilization of the passenger and the logistic transport, the main contributor in reducing the emission of gas carbon, helps the government in reducing transport congestion, and last but not least, with intermodal integration that we have created, we can achieve our vision driving the best transport ecosystem solution for Indonesia. That's all from me, and we are very happy to see you all, and hope all of you here enjoy the webinar, Developing Eco-Friendly and Sustainable Transportation. I wish it comes up with several beneficial points for eco-friendly environment that increases the equality of life of people and the world. Thank you for your kind attention. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank you, Mr. Herdianto, for such wonderful and amazing keynote speech. You have shown us how PT KAI Indonesia has a commitment to reduce the emissions, and in order to achieve the eco-friendly transportation, for example, by using the use of electricity, or maybe at the end of next year, or maybe the 2 years, you might also committed to use, for example, the solar fuel system for the transportation. But we will see at that. But at least now we know that the PT KAI Indonesia is committed to reduce the emissions by developing more transportation mode, both in the region in Jakarta or in Bali or in Yogyakarta. Thank you very much, Pak Herdianto. Moving on the next part, we will hear our 3 speakers delivering their presentation. First, I will give the time to Dr. Muhammad Rizal Palil. Dr. Palil, are you still with us now?
Yes, I am.
Okay, great. I will read your curriculum CV first. Dr. Palil is an associate professor at the Faculty of Economics and Management, University Kebangsaan Malaysia. He received his PhD in Accounting and Taxation from the University of Birmingham, United Kingdom. He is currently lecturing undergraduate and postgraduate students at the School of Accounting, University Kebangsaan Malaysia, where he works since 1998. He has published several books and articles in his field of interest, such as public finance, fiscal policy, and international tax administration. He will deliver his presentation titled Transportation-Related Taxes in Malaysia, Leading to Success. Please, Dr. Palil, 30 minutes time each is yours.
Thank you very much, Ibu Erna. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam.
Waalaikumsalam.
To all floor members, yang dihormati Profesor Ayu, as a Dean of Faculty of Law, Universitas 11 Maret, our keynote speaker, Bapak Didik Haratantio, our colleague as a speaker, Professor Teknan, and juga Professor Pungki Hendra Wijaya from Curtin University. Alhamdulillah, and thank you very much again for inviting me in sharing some of our knowledge related to transportation tax in Malaysia. Before I begin, is the slide ready to be shared with all floor members by the committee? Okay. Okay. So the things that I wish to share today is related to transportation related tax in Malaysia, leading to success. Yeah, as we know that Malaysia is a developing country, and therefore we are heavily reliant on our tax collections in order to develop our economy successfully. Right. Next, there are some taxes. Yeah. Okay. Next, please. There are some taxes related to transportations in Malaysia, so-called as the import duty to any vehicles imported from outside Malaysia. And then we also impose excise tax or excise duty as well. And recently, we also charge what we call as passengers levy. Yeah, all these three will be discussed in my next presentations. Okay. Next. All right. So this is the overview of Malaysian tax-related transportation collections in 2020. As we can see from the statistic here, there are some what we call as some numbers, some important numbers. Yeah. For example, for import duty for cars, we have been successfully collected nearly RM1 billion ringgit Malaysia, and it comprises of 1%. Okay. And then we also collected excise duty on cars, okay, somewhat around ringgit Malaysia 6 billion or 4% from our total tax collected. And the largest number of tax collected, yeah, from SST or sales and services tax for cars, spare part, and machineries, it comprises of 15.5 billion tax collected. Okay, so combining these three taxes, yeah, related to the cars or transportation related industries, we have been achieved more than 20 billion ringgit Malaysia for this year. Okay, for we have successfully collected more than 20 billion. So it is a huge number, even though it is an estimation, yeah, even though it is an estimation, but constantly we have achieved this collection for the last 10 years. Yeah. Okay, so meaning that in Malaysia, for example, we have collected 20 billion ringgit Malaysia in order to develop the economy using this particular source of income. Yeah. And then next, please. Okay. So this is the comparison between the Malaysian economy 2020 and our estimated economy in 2021. These are the yearly budget analysis. Okay. So last 2 weeks, yeah, ladies and gentlemen, Malaysia has been tabled what we call as budget 2021 in our parliament, and this is the highest number of budgeted revenue, okay, throughout our history, whereby we next slide, please. Next, please. Okay, whereby we have been budgeted 322 billion ringgit Malaysia. Okay, 322 billion ringgit Malaysia. Compared to previous year, we only budgeted around 297 billion. Okay, so we estimated that next year in 2021, we should achieve the highest record of tax collected and other revenues in Malaysia. Right. However, even though the numbers are relatively good compared to 2020, because there are significant increment in our budgeted, okay, revenue and also expenditure, there is a deficit in our tax. There is a deficit in our budget 2020 as well as 2021, whereby we have to finance some of our tax. Okay, we have to finance some of our expenditure in the next year. Okay, we have what we call as experiencing more than 10 years deficit in our budget in order to stimulate the economy as well as to maintain the current situation of the economy. Okay, as from this statistic, we can see that the large portion, yeah, of our tax collected or our budget in 2021 is coming from direct tax, which is nearly 50%. Okay, and then we have indirect tax, comprises of 13.2%. Okay, so the indirect taxes here is related to transportation tax that has been presented earlier. Okay, and then we also have non-tax revenue. Okay, non-tax revenue, and we have some borrowings. The green color there is our borrowings. As we can see, ladies and gentlemen, our borrowing, yeah, and use of government asset is approximately 26.5%, more than a quarter of the projected revenue in the next year. Okay, right. So next. So this is the thing that we mentioned earlier. Okay, for indirect tax, okay, we have sales tax in related to transportation tax in Malaysia. Okay, so we have sales tax exemption for the purchase of locally assembled bus, including air conditioner. Okay, will be extended for a period of 2 years. Okay, so this is related to public transport, what we call stimulus program, okay, due to COVID-19. Okay, presented last 3 weeks, so that sales tax will be exempted for industrial usage. For example, buses will be exempted from 1st January to 31st December 2022, whereby sales tax for passengers cars only exempted from 1st June 2020 up to 31st December 2020 only. Okay, so now this is the best time to buy or to purchase cars in Malaysia because we have been fully exempted by sales tax. Okay, however, even though it is good for our nations, yeah, because we are what we can save merely 5,000 ringgit or 10,000 ringgit for a car. However, bear in our mind that this will erode our tax collection in the next coming year as well as this year. Okay. But during the COVID-19, for example, yeah, we have no choice. Okay, this is the role of government in maintaining the lifestyle of the nations, as well as provide whatever incentive, right, to our nation so that they can sustain their life, as well as at the same time, this is the best time for government to sacrifice some of the tax revenue. Okay, next. In relation to environmental issues, as mentioned by our keynote speaker previously, right? So we have a program, okay, in order to encourage the corporate social responsibility. Okay, in this case, we are allowable deduction for what we call as considered as allowable expenditure for a company under Section 34(6)H Income Tax Act 1967 in a way that environmental preservation and conservation projects, including forests, island, beach, and national park, as well as maintenance and conservation project for heritage building designated by National Heritage Department under the National Heritage Act 2005. So, apart from maintaining the economy, we also focusing on our environmental issue so that our environmental will still be preserved. Yeah. Next. And in relation to our budget as well, to further promote automation and enhance productivity and efficiency in the labor-intensive industry, what we call as labor-intensive industry in Category 1 and Category 2. After this, we will know what is the meaning of Category 1 and Category 2. Okay, next please. So the government of Malaysia has some incentive to what we call as Category 1 labor-intensive industry, for example, rubber, plastic, wood, and textile, as well as Category 2 industries other than Category 1, for example, transportations, whereby the government will provide the ACA for automation equipment, yeah, what we call as accelerated capital allowance, yeah, accelerated capital allowance. We are providing an enjoyment up to 100%, okay, on the first 2 million ringgit for qualifying capital expenditure, okay, and this is what we call as instant incentive, yeah, instant incentive provided to certain industries other than rubber, plastic, wood, and textile products in order to stimulate their business income. At the same time, okay, what are the relationship between the ACA and tax burden of a company? the ACA will reduce the taxable income of the company significantly, and therefore the taxable income lower, and of course the income tax burden for the company would be lower for specific industries under category 2. Okay, and then next please. Okay, so this is the new things imposed by Malaysian government since 1st September 2019. Okay, in order to what we call as increase the number of revenue in terms of tax, the government has introduced what we call as departure levy. Okay, I think in Indonesia we used to have is it airport tax that we need to pay cash before we fly from Indonesia to other countries? I think 10 years ago or 15 years ago, I still remember I have to pay the airport tax. For example, from Jakarta Airport, from Jakarta Airport, there are different rates of airport tax. Yeah, but in Malaysia, we are in the early stage of introducing this. Okay, what we call is not an airport tax, but we call it as departure levy. Okay, will be imposed only 8 ringgit. Yeah, to economy class passengers and 50 ringgit on business class. Okay, flying from Malaysia to Asian destination. Okay, and beyond Asian, okay, from Malaysia to other countries than Asian will be charged with a departure levy of 20 ringgit for economy class and 150 for business class and first class. Okay, so this is what we call as a very affordable rate. Yeah, a very affordable rate. For example, 8 ringgit and 20 ringgit, okay, per passenger, per adult passenger, okay, has to be paid when you purchase the ticket. Okay, so this is a very new to Malaysia. Okay, the honors of having this is to increase the tax collections. However, due to COVID-19, very minimal passengers are flying abroad, and therefore we can say that the objective of having departure levy is not being achieved yet. Yeah, because the number of passengers from flying from KL or flying to KL will be slightly lower than previous years. Okay, and for infant, yeah, you don't have to pay this what we call as the departure levy. Okay, next please. Okay, so this is the exception for departure levy. Infants and toddlers aged below 24, flight passengers in transiting in the Malaysia airport with a transit period not exceeding 12 hours, and those driving or riding any type of vehicle for personal use. Okay, so this is the exception of departure levy. Okay, or any crew on duty on board any vehicle including aircraft or vessel. Okay, next please. How many minutes do I have, Ibu? Okay, I'll try to be quick. Yeah. Okay, so this is the incentive that I said earlier. Okay, related to COVID-19. Okay, tax incentive for purchase of passengers cars will be excluded for sales and services tax.
Excuse me, Pak Khalil. You still have 9 minutes, so take your time.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you for that. All right. So as I said earlier, the assumption of sales tax since mid-June to December 2020. Okay, the quantum of the exemption would be nearly 1 billion ringgit Malaysia. Okay, 897 million. Okay, this is the thing that the government should think the amount that they may suffer from the implementation of exemption of sales tax. Okay, all right. In this case, okay, unlike other countries in Europe, for example, yeah. Unlike other countries in Europe, they are heavily relying on public transport because they have a very efficient railway connections. Yeah, they have very efficient buses connections, right? And they have very efficient taxi connections. Yeah, and the fare, okay, in Europe countries is slightly lower or what we call as affordable for them. Okay, but in Malaysia, for example, our main transportation medium is car. Yeah, our main transportation medium is car. And therefore, okay, even though we have what we call a certain incentive, yeah, to boost our sales of cars, okay, during the COVID-19 or this year, we still can see that there are some issues arise from this particular incentive, yeah, because since March 2020, for your information, the economy in Malaysia is what we call as shrinking, yeah, and the people with a good income hesitate to buy new cars, okay, because they are not very sure what will happen for the next year, what will happen for the next 2 years, and therefore they are trying not to expend more than their income. And in order to boost this particular purchasing issues, yeah, in terms of cars, that's why the government provide what we call as exemption on sales tax, yeah, for the transportation issues. Okay, and then we also at the stage of number 4, yeah, we are in recovery, yeah, after being affected by COVID-19 crisis, we are now in the sense of recovery issues. Okay, next please. And this is the a glance of our economy prior to COVID-19 and current situations. We suffered what we call as negative increase in our GDP in third quarter 2020. Yeah, as you can see that we have negative 2.7 increase. This is based on our central bank report. Yeah, and we have illustrated the services or the industries that suffers most. In this case is constructions. Yeah, construction industries follows by mining and quarrying as well as services. Yeah, so this is the thing that the government should think how to boost the construction industries. Okay, and for your information, the property market in Malaysia is slowing down. Yeah, however, even though the interest rate provided by banks are the lowest of the history of Malaysia, however, as I said earlier, people with a good money, people with good income are hesitate, are worried, yeah, to spend, okay, during the COVID-19. Okay, it is no good for economy theory, okay, but we have no choice, right? We have to be very careful because we do not know what will happen next year. Okay, next please. And this is the situations, yeah, from quarter 1, 2, 3, 4 in 2019 as well as quarter 1, 2, 3 in 2020, and we are now in quarter number 4. Yeah, the report from Bank Negara has not been released yet, and even though we are having a negative impact, negative 2.7. Okay, we do expect that in quarter 4 in 2020, at least we can maintain our growth in economy. Okay. Next, please. Okay. And as for summary and conclusions, ladies and gentlemen, okay, Malaysia is considered as highly dependent on transportation-related tax. As I said, okay, we collected around 20 billion. Okay, we have 140 billion collected from direct tax, and from indirect tax in related to transportation, we collected 20 billion ringgit. Okay, a dream by Malaysian to abolish import duty, sales taxes, and excise taxes is a hope. Why? Because government is highly depending on this particular tax collections. Okay. Unlike other countries in Europe, for example, their tax on the cars are very, very minimal or probably zero. Okay, that's why the price of cars in developed countries are much more cheaper than in Malaysia. Okay, so in Malaysia, the car price is quite expensive, right? So high tax collection on cars in particular will lead the economy better in the long run. Okay, this is the reason why the government will not abolish the tax to the cars, okay, or transportation issues. And we also hope that sustainable economy through stable tax collections is vital, yeah, in order to resilient with challenges, right? So with that summary and conclusions, I finish my presentations. I welcome any questions after the session's over. Thank you very much. So I pass this seminar to Ibu Erna.
Yeah, Thank you so much, Dr. Palil, for your interesting and thought-provoking presentations. If I could emphasize on what Dr. Palil has said is that Malaysia has reduced some taxes in the transportation system, but the purposes for these taxes are threefold, I think. The first one is for the economic growth of the country, and then the taxes also be used for the environmental preservation. So this is for the environmental protections, and also that the transportation can also be developed in the sustainable ways. And then the third one is for the incentive for the industries. Yeah. Thank you so much, Dr. Palil. Let me then start again with the second speakers, Mr. Mas Pungki Hendra Wijaya, PhD. Dr. Wijaya received his PhD from Curtin University, Australia, and he currently works in the same university as a lecturer and researcher. He also served as a senior legal and policy analyst at the Ministry of Human Resources Empowerment and Bureaucratic Reform of the Republic of Indonesia. He has published several articles relating to government, bureaucratic, and administrative reform. Based on his expertise, Dr. Wijaya will share with us his experience and knowledge on the Australian Railways Organization as well as its reform. Dr. Wijaya, are you still with us?
Yes, I'm still here.
Yes, thank you so much. Great. I hand over the forum to you. You have 30 minutes to deliver your presentation, please.
Thank you very much, Ibu Erna. Excellency, Prof. Ayu, Dean of Faculty of Law of UNS University, and keynote speaker, Pak Didi Haryanto, President Director of PT Kereta Api, and Associate Professor Muhammad Rizal Pahlil, and also Dr. Hilary Teknan. Good afternoon. Thank you very much for the opportunity given to me to explain about the railways regulatory framework in Western Australia. Why I'm talking about specifically Western Australia, not Australia as the whole country or in the level of the Commonwealth government, it is because that railways management in Australia are to a large extent are state-based. So the power of the state governments, as Australia is a federal government country, the power of the state government, they have more power in managing the railways compared to the power of the Commonwealth government. The ownership and management arrangements for Australia rail infrastructures and rail operation are generally divided into two levels. Below level is the rail or the track management, that is the owner or the owner of the track or the entities that manage the railways. And the above rail are the operators of trains and the rolling stock. These functions are performed by a mix of government and private sector operators. As I mentioned earlier, that these railways management in Australia are to a large extent state-based, and except for a small number of private railways, most of the Australian railway network infrastructure is government-owned, either at the federal or state level. The Australian government is involved in the formation of national policies and provides funding for national projects. And the federal department responsible of doing this is Department of Infrastructure, Transport, Regional Development and Communications. However, rail transport in Australia has often been neglected in favor of other type of transport. there is road and air. There are extensive network of highway throughout Australia, but not compared to the railways network. So the road networks are more extensive compared to the railway network. And also people, if in Australia, if they are traveling interstates, let's say they are traveling from Perth to, let's say, to the Adelaide, Sydney or Melbourne, most of the public are prefer to use, if they have car, they will use their own car, or they will use an air transport, because if you are using air transport, it's cheaper, it's significantly cheaper compared to if you are using train that is interstate that traveling interstate between Perth to Sydney are only for passengers. There are only Australia only have one, that is the Indian Pacific train. It is a quite luxurious train, so and it is very expensive. So if you are using that train, then it's only uses for tourism. So along the journey, you will stop in multiple cities in the rural area of the along the journey. And when you are stopping, there are bus waiting for the passengers and take you to the places of interest along the way, along the city where it's stopped by the Indian Pacific train. So it is not as for interstate travel. It is only not a backbone of the way people traveling. So, but compared to the air, the air travel, that is significantly different. And historically, Australian Railways did not receive substantial funding from the federal government. Whilst the federal government have provided substantial funding for upgrading of roads since 1920s, they have not regularly funded investment in railways, except for the railway owned by the federal government. That is the Commonwealth Railways. Later, that it is become the Australian National Railway Commission, and it was privatized in 1997. The Commonwealth government considered the funding of railways owned by state government to be a state responsibility. Nevertheless, Australian governments also have made loans to the states for gauge standardization projects from 1920 to 70s. From 70s to 1996, the Australian government has provided some fundings for the states for rail projects, particularly in the Keating government's One Nation program that was announced in 1992. It was notable for standardizing the Adelaide to Melbourne line in 1995. Significantly, government. I want to tell you before that that the One Nation program was announced in 1992, was notable for standardizing the Adelaide to Melbourne line in 1995. Before that, if you are traveling from, let's say, for Adelaide to Melbourne or from Melbourne to Brisbane, often you need to change trains multiple times because the width of the rail, the gauge, is not standard. It's not the same. So because the width of the rail, the train are different, and the width of the rail is different, then you need to change the train. And significant government funding was also made available for the Alice Springs to Darwin railways. It was opened in 2004, and then substantial funding is now made available for freight railways. Freight railways through the Australian Rail Track Corporation and the Auslink Land Transport Funding Program. The incompatibility of the state rail system was brought ahead during Second World War, when the world effort requires a large quantities of goods and personnel to be moved quickly throughout Australia. But it was not until June 1995 that trains could travel between Brisbane and Perth via Sydney, Melbourne, and Adelaide on the standard gauge tracks. By 1997, the situation has improved significantly so that passengers could remain on the same train on a journey from Perth to Sydney. Three different gauges are still exist in Australia, but the state capitals are now linked by one uniform gauge. In 2009, as part of the government's Seamless National Economy Agenda, the Council of Australian Governments, or COAG, is a council between the state level or territory governments and the Commonwealth governments, are agreed to national transport regulation reforms, including the establishment of a national rail safety law and national rail safety regulator. Historically, rail safety regulation has been managed by 7 separate regulatory authorities, which collectively involve up to 46 pieces of state, territory, and Commonwealth regulatory legislations. To resolve the problems, the Commonwealth and state and territory governments are agreed to establish a new single national rail safety regulator, or the Office of the NRSR. The NRSR will help overcome inconsistent regulatory practices between states and territories that have constrained rail transport operators across jurisdictional borders since Federation. Federation is meaning the creation of the Commonwealth of Australia in 1901. In 1998, the federal government, in agreement with the state governments, established the Australian Rail Track Corporation, or Limited, or ARTC, to unify, manage, and develop Australia's interstate track infrastructures. ARTC, which is wholly owned by the Australian government, manage over 8,000 kilometers of standard gauge track, primarily through direct ownership and long-term leases of state-owned tracks. So it's not all the track that is managed by the ARTC are directly owned by ARTC. Some of the track are leased or rented from the state governments. Between Kalgoorlie in Western Australia and Acacia Ridge in southern Brisbane. Through ARTC ownership and lease of the interstate line, the 6 separate state-based arrangements, which historically govern mainland interstate rail operation, have been gradually replaced with a single set of common rules, operating standards, and access regulation, representing a significant boost to the efficiency of freight rail in Australia. So there are a lot of efforts to unify the interstate network to standardize the track or the gauge across Australia. There are several federal government bodies involved in railways management. First is the Department of Infrastructure, Transport, Regional Development and Communication. This department is responsible for the design and implementation of the Australian government infrastructures, transport and regional development policies and programs. And also the RTC that I have mentioned before, it is a federal government-owned corporation that owns, leases, maintains, and controls the majority of mainline standard gauge railway lines on the mainland of Australia. Also, this track is known as the Designated Interstate Rail Network. Also, there is Infrastructure Australia, a government body created to oversee all rail, road, airports, and other infrastructure at national level. Also, the federal government has the ATSB that also perform as a national rail safety investigator for all states and territories. Australia have two territories, that is Northern Territory with the capital Darwin and Australian Capital Territory with the capital Canberra. The ATSB Rail Safety Investigation role occurs concurrently with the Office of the National Rail Safety Regulator, overseeing rail safety regulation in every Australian state and territory. And also the Office of NRSR that I also have mentioned this agency before is an independent body corporate established under the Rail Safety National Law, South Australia Act 2012. The primary objective of the ONRSR are encouraged and enforce safe operation and to promote and improve national rail safety. The ONRSR was established in July 2012 and commenced operation on 20 January 2013. It now has the responsibility for regulatory oversight of rail safety law in all jurisdictions. Why the title of the law has South Australia in bracket, the Rail Safety National Law of South Australia? Well, it's the political system in Australia and how the law is passed in Australia is quite unique. The law itself was introduced by South Australian government, and then it was brought to the federal level of government, and then the law itself was then subsequently was accepted by other jurisdiction or other states in Australia. The ownership of the railways now I'm talking specifically in Western Australia, because it is a state that is in the western part of the Australia, is the largest state in Australia. The ownership of railway is in WA. It's the interstate standard gauge lane from Kalgoorlie, that is the area known as a mining region, from Kalgoorlie to Adelaide, is owned by the ARTC. While the rail lines in the southwest are the city between the Basildon and then also to the city of Albany of the state are leased to Brookfield Rail, a privately owned corporation. And Pilbara railway lines in the northern part of the WA are owned and managed by privately listed companies. Most of them are mining companies, like BXP, Billiton. BXP and Billiton now already separate, so there are BXP and Billiton by itself, and Rio Tinto, and then Fortescue Metals Group. And the urban network is in the capital of WA, that is Perth, and its great metropolitan area. The urban component of the former WGR or West Rail Network is now under control of the Public Transport Authority for the provision of urban passenger services. PTA operates this service as an integral part of the transport system. Railways in WA, the history of the railways in WA. WAGR was the operator of railway services in the state of WA between October 1819 and June 2003. Owned by the state government, it was renamed a number of times to reflect extra responsibility for tram and ferry operations that it assumes, and later relinquished. Its freight operation were privatized in December 2000, with the remaining passengers operation transferred to the Public Transport Authority in July 2003, when when the PTA was formed in 2003. The railway operators in WA, railways in WA were developed in the 19th century both by the government of WA and a number of private companies. Today, passenger rail services are controlled by the Public Transport Authority. It is a department of the government of WA. Through Transport, it operates public transport in Perth and surrounding, and also Trans WA that operates country passenger services from Perth to the rural area in WA, like from Perth to Albany, from Perth to Calgary, and other cities in WA. While the Great Southern Rail operates the Indian Pacific. Indian Pacific is the only passenger train that operates from Perth to Sydney via Adelaide. The interstate gauge line is from Calgary is owned by the ARTC, with most other lines leased by the state to ARC Infrastructure. And the freight rail was privatized in 2000. General intrastate freight is mainly operated by Aurizon, while grain traffic is operated by Watco under contract to the CBH Group. Interstate traffic is operated by Pacific National and the SST Logistics. A number of private iron ore haulage railways also operate in the mining area of the Pilbara region of the state. Public Transport Authority (WA) or PTA, it's basically working in two functions, that is as an operator and also as a regulator. The PTA is a statutory authority that oversees the operation of all public transport in WA. It is an agency under WA Minister for Transport and Planning. So, Western Australia Minister for Transport and Planning. It was formed in 2003 in accordance with the Public Transport Authority Act 2003 as the body overseeing the provision of public transport in WA. PTA is responsible for the following transport services, like from rail, bus, and ferry services in the metropolitan area transport, and public transport services in regional centers, transregional, coach and rail passengers services to regional areas, that is Trans WA, school bus services, and is also responsible in designing, building, and maintaining transport infrastructure, and protecting the long-term viability of the state freight rail corridor and infrastructure. Also, the WA government has an independent regulator. It's not necessarily owned by the government, actually. The WA Economic Regulation Authority is a Western Australia independent economic regulator. It aims to ensure the delivery of water, electricity, gas, and rail services in WA is in the long-term interest of consumers. The WA rail access regime is the framework for ensuring effective, fair, and transparent competition of WA railway network. So actually this kind of regulator is not owned by the government. It's like an independent agency. We compare to Indonesia, it's probably like a lembaga non-structural that is independent from the government. The ERA's work ensures that WA consumers and business have a fair, competitive, and efficient environment. Why independent regulations? Because that independence needs a clear separation between government policy setting and regulations. Independent reduces the risk of regulatory decision being inappropriately influenced by vested interests, helping to ensure that decision making is in the long-term interest of the WA consumers. Also, in WA, the applicable law is the Rail Safety National Law W Act 2015. It is actually an act that was, I said mentioned before, that was introduced by South Australia, and then become the law of the federal law or the national law, and then subsequently it states adopting this law to be applicable in their own jurisdictions. The main purpose of this law is to provide for a national rail safety regulation schemes, including a single national rail safety regulator and a national rail safety investigator, in accordance with the terms of the Intergovernmental Agreements on Rail Safety Regulation and Investigation Reform. I already mentioned this before, but the COAC in June 2009 agreed to establish a single national regulator for rail safety, as well as a national rail safety investigator. The reform is part of the Council of Australia Government National Partnership Agreement to deliver a seamless national economy. The reform.
Excuse me, Dr. Wijaya.
Yes.
I'm afraid that you only have 5 more minutes to conclude your presentation, please.
It's only just a few more. The reform aims to decrease combined costs to business by reducing the level of unnecessary regulation and inconsistent regulation across jurisdictions. In 2011, COAC, including Premier is like the governor probably in Indonesia, Premier of WA signed the Intergovernmental Agreement to establish a national system of rail safety regulation and investigation. It was noted that WA will adopt the rail national law through mirror legislation, that is national legislation that is adopted to the state legislation, to ensure that any future amendment to the law could be considered by WA Parliament. So let's say that any amendment made by South Australian government or the Victorian government, then the law will be automatically not automatically. Then the WA Parliament can consider about that future amendment. In May 2012, the South Australian Parliament passed the Rail Safety National Law that established the NRSR, and this left other jurisdictions to pass legislation to adopt Rail Safety National Law to create the NRSR as Australia's single rail safety regulatory authority. These are the objectives of the Rail Safety National Law. I think I already mentioned this before. This is the statistic of the train performance in WA. It's not really bad. It's quite good. It's in terms of performance and consumer satisfaction in 2020. It's always above 90%. Well, about the occupancy can you from here at the bottom, you can see that 2018, 2019, from July to June. Why from July to June? Because the Australia's fiscal year was started in July and ended in June. So in 1 year, from July to June, from 2018 to 2019, the total passengers, well, it's quite small compared to the passengers in Jakarta probably, but yeah, because the population are relatively small. 61 million from 2018 to 2019, and then 2019 to 20 are going down probably because of the COVID. Because there are COVID-19 restrictions, so not so many people using public transport, and then it's also still going down again. And from July this year to September, there are still 10 million passengers. And then while the transport performance are quite good, it's not necessarily happen to the Trans WA that operate the train from Perth to regional area. As you can see here, in quarter 1, July, the prospect for the prospector trade is only 31 to 93%. By the end of quarter 4, it's 75%, and then Australing, it's there is no train that operate for rural areas that achieve that steadily achieve above 90%. So it's always up and down. So the performance is not as good as the train that operate as suburban in metropolitan area. I think that will be all for my presentations. Thank you very much. Sorry that I hope that will fill the curiosity. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you very much, Dr. Wijaya, for the great and thought-provoking presentation. I may not be able to summarize your presentation because this it's really new to me how Australia divide their transportation system between Western and the Eastern of Australia. But maybe I could take one element of the your presentation is that there is an interplay between the government and also the independent institutions, as you said, as well as other stakeholders to guarantee in delivering the best transportation service in the whole country. And this also can be done by adopting the rail safety national law, so that it could guarantee that the service could be delivered perfectly to the customer.
Yes, because the law itself that is established by the Commonwealth is not necessarily directly applied to the state government. So that is why.
Yeah. Okay, yes. Thank you so much. Maybe we can continue later on into the presentation, into the questions and answers. Okay, next, moving on to the third speaker, I would like to introduce Dr. Hilary Teknan. Dr. Teknan, are you still online?
Yeah, I'm right here.
Yes, great. Dr. Teknan holds a PhD in law from both the Law School of Utrecht University, the Netherlands. So we're kind of coming from the same countries. I mean, in terms of educations. And then he also has a double degree from Andalas University, Padang, Indonesia. He also received both his bachelor and master degrees in criminology from Sorbonne University, Panthéon, Paris, France. He will be presenting about environmental corruption in Indonesia. So, Dr. Teknan, I hand over the forum to you, please.
Yeah, thank you very much for allowing me to be a part of this magnificent international event. My first gratitude goes to Professor Dr. Usiayu, and also to our keynote speaker, Bapak Dadi Atantio, SAMBA, the director of the president director of PT Kereta Api Indonesia. I also want to thank the associate professor, Dr. Moriza, one of the speakers from the University Kebangsaan Malaysia, of course, and the speaker who just preceded me, Mas Panki Endra Wijaya. Thank you very much from the university, from the Faculty of Law of Curtin University, Australia. I also want to thank our moderator, and now we just said we came from the same university in terms of graduation, post-university. Thank you for moderating this event. I want to thank also our host, Ms. Fatma Ulfatau Nashincha. I hope I pronounced your name correctly. Last and not least, I want to thank the students from Universitas 11 Maret. Without you guys, this wouldn't have been possible. So my thought goes out to you. I hope you're safe. I hope you're fine and well. I hope you always will be by the grace of Allah. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Today, I would like to present, like what said just a few seconds ago, to talk about environmental corruption in Indonesia. I a little bit want to take a different path from my predecessors who've been involved in the protection of the environment within the transportation. But my presentation will take a little different path. I'd like to focus on the corruption within the fight, within the protection of the environment in Indonesia. This presentation, let me share my screen first. Okay.
Techman is really with.
But I'm doing it. I'm sharing my own screen. Am I allowed to? Hello? Can you hear me?
Yes, Dr. Teknan, very clear.
Can you see my screen? Can you see
Yes.
Can you see me? All right. Okay. Thank you. So I would like to begin with the aim of my presentation. First, this presentation will discuss some corrupt behavior of law enforcement officers, environmental and government officials that cause environmental degradation and pollution. And then I'll be showing several cases of corruption to help explain how corruption takes place in the government effort to protect the environment. Finally, this presentation suggests some legislative reform that must be made with regard to the improvement of the existing laws and regulations on environmental protections in Indonesia. So, ladies and gentlemen, the struggle to eradicate corruption in Indonesia has long been ongoing, yet it seems like the phenomenon is spreading wider and stronger within almost all vital sectors of life, including the protection of the environment through laws and regulations. Aware of this situation, the government passed Law number 30/2002, allowing the creation of Corruption Eradication Commission or Komisi Pemberantasan Korupsi. This law has significantly changed the fight against corruption in Indonesia. Since its creation, the Commission has been hunting down corruptors, whatever they are, like never before. This presentation discusses the efforts to prevent corruptions in the protections of the environment by providing an overview of laws and regulations enacted to protect the environment. Then to combat corruptions and safeguarding the environment in Indonesia. So that's what I would like to show you will be to talk about, excuse me, my screen a little bit slow processing this. Okay. I'm sorry, it's kind of freezing in here, so I would like to apologize for that.
Dr. Teknan, maybe you need help that maybe one of the committee can share your screens, if you don't mind.
Oh, it's okay. I think I can handle it. Thank you for suggesting it. So,
yes, no worries.
First, I'm beginning to point out the environmental laws and regulations put in place by the Indonesian government. So law number 1 is the law number 4/1982 on the basic provisions on the management of living environment. So from 1982, the fight against the fight for the protections of the environment had began in Indonesia. So it's just like a long time ago. This is not it's not a new situation, because long before the government has already thought about it, and legal reforms has been put in place to eradicate this phenomenon. Second law is the law number 5, 1990, which was followed by law number 24 the same year, followed by law number 23, 1997. And also you have the law number 32, year 2009, that deals with the same issue. But what is interesting here, ladies and gentlemen, to point out is these regulations, however, they are considered insufficient and ineffective to control the pollution and the deterioration of the environment. So it's very important to point out, it's not just enough to put out laws and regulations, but the government has to make sure these laws are complied with and sanctions are being taken to put a stop, or if not, to minimize the effects of the environment. Because we know that a great portion of the Indonesian population live in rural areas. So this is a very important issue to address. My next slide will be, I'll be talking about the government actions, because the previous slide was about the law put in place. Now I'm going to talk about the government regulations, because it is two different things. Laws taking place within the parliament, and also law enacted by the government. First in line, you have law number 41, 1990 on the mitigations of air pollution. You also have government regulation number 27, 1999 on environmental impact analysis, which is abbreviated as EIA. And then you have the government regulation number 4, 2001 on the mitigations of damage of environmental pollution in relation to forests and land fire. Like I pointed out, law number 23, year 1997 was proven unable to manage and control the activity causing deterioration and pollution of the environment due to its leniency towards environmental and other governmental officials who did not comply with environmental laws. So to push the fights a little step further, in 2009, law number 23, 1997 was replaced by law number 32, 2009, which set forth criminal sanctions for licenses users, including governmental officials and law enforcement officers who do not comply with laws and regulations related to environmental protection. So, like I pointed out, there should be sanctions. It shouldn't just see, the corruption within the protection of the environment should not just seen as administrative wrongdoing. It should also be criminalized. And these laws take this purpose to criminalize every breach of environmental laws, which is very, very important, in my opinion. It's very important. Tonight, I'm going to talk about the environmental corruption itself. Having talked about the laws and regulations put in place, I think it's important to talk about the manifestation of the phenomenon itself. The debate over the protection of environment in Indonesia is unimportant, considering the inefficiency of enforcement of environmental law. Environmental degradations and pollution occur when the environmental or other government official practice personally economic gain in performing their duty and protecting the environment. Government officials often use licenses for business owners who do not fulfill requirement. And this is it's very sad. They do not fulfill a requirement specified by the law. This often happens because there are bribed by project owners. Bribery, here again, bribery. It's very important. Like I said, it's important to have laws, but we should keep track of these laws as to whether or not they are being enforced. Corruptive behavior may also occur at the compliance monitoring stage. So you have these government officials who are put in there to monitor compliance, to monitor all these regulations. But sadly, they remain silent when there's a breach. They remain silent. And this is very dangerous. It's very dangerous, ladies and gentlemen. The same practice also takes place within law enforcement. This is very worse. I've talked about the previous situation, but this one is very worse. Those entrusted to enforce the law are the same people, the very same people breaching it. Can you believe that? Breaching that very thing. So it's very doomed. It's very doomed. When people put in place, people having the trust of the population, violating their own hope of office, it's very critical, ladies and gentlemen. And as I move forward, I would like to point out the realm of the environmental protection. Now, the fields where all this happens, based on law number 32, as pointed out, 2009, of the protection and the management of the environment. These also includes spatial planning. You have environmental quality standards, environmental impact analysis, and licenses. So these three sectors are where these regulations play out. Is where they interacts. Okay, ladies and gentlemen. Companies or individual might fulfill these requirements stipulated under the law before they can establish and operate their plants or businesses. The environmental protection laws is clustered as a functional laws. So you have it places administrative law as a key player in protecting and managing environmental in Indonesia. Like I said, this is not just enough. There should be a criminal aspect. There should be a criminalization of the breach of environmental regulation, ladies and gentlemen. As I move forward, having said that, I think the area where the administrative sanctions applies here should be pointed out too. How does administrative sanctions apply here? First, on administrative sanctions included written warning, administrative orders, suspension of environmental permits, and revocations of environmental permits based on law number 30 to 2009. These are not just enough. They should be further. There should be more binding and forcing regulation so that these measures are complied with. And also, in addition to administrative sanctions and regulation, you also have civil law sanctions. And here, ladies and gentlemen, I think it's very important to bring forward, to point this out. The Indonesian legal system doesn't just offer the administrative remedy, you also have civil remedy, which is very important. And what does this do? It allows individual who sees a breach of environmental laws, who suffered any actual violation of environmental law, to take action, to take legal actions in courts. This is very, very important. It is because the government might put in place regulations, but those who first witness and suffer from this are the population, the individual in remote villages. And if the laws give them the possibility to take legal action, I think it's a very important step towards putting a stop to this phenomenon. So you have here, these appear there appears two systems of liability introduced by the law. Namely, you have liability based on faults, which requires a plaintiff to prove. So if you suffer, you need to prove it. That's the first thing. You need to prove that the pollution is caused by an unlawful conduct. So it was a breach, like I said. Number two, that the pollution is a result of the willful misconduct. Number three, the pollution causes monetary injury. And number four, that there is a causal link between the conduct and the injury. So when you have these four elements, there you go, you have your case. You have a legal standing in court. And strict liability. So like I pointed out, you have the liability based on faults and also liability, a strict liability, which does not require a proof of faults. The pollution is strictly liable once the pollution is generated. So you have two options here. You have two options offered to you. If you see a pollution, it doesn't have to, but the pollution strictly is liable. So once there's pollution, you have it. You can go to court and make your case. Now here, like I pointed out, you have criminal sanctions. The criminal sanctions also are under the Indonesian legal system, and especially the criminal law, the Indonesian criminal law. You can take criminal actions against the companies if you notice any wrongdoing. And next that I would like to point out, like I said at the outset of my presentations, there's been cases, and these cases are worth pointing out. Case number one is the case of, these cases have been decided, so there's no secrecy, there's no breach of copyright or whatsoever. This case has been decided. These are public cases, and verdicts have been rendered in these cases, so it's there's no problem. As a foreigner, I think I have to take caution before I talk about this case. And my case number one here is a case of Azil you probably maybe remember this case. The Secretary General of Government of Kepulauan Riau, which is a province north of West Sumatra, who wanted to build a complex of government office, which is a good cause, right? It's a good cause in a protected area. For that purpose, he needed the approval of both the Minister of Forest and the Parliament. To smoothen his plan, he bribed Al-Hamin Nusantio, a member of the Parliament, Commission 4 specifically, with 3 billion. So you see here a government official who have an official mission, who uses the power to advance some illegal and unlawful methods, as you can see here. So what happened in this case, what happened is the commission, the briber and the one who received the bribe, they were charged with bribery, which is prohibited under Article 5, Section 1 of the corruption law. He was awarded 2 years, but sadly, he was awarded 2 years and 6 months imprisonment and fined as much as 100 million. So yeah, state lost here 3 billion, and he was fined 100 million. So you can see here the discrepancy in imposing sentences, in imposing sanctions, while his accomplices was sentenced 3 year imprisonment with a fine of 250 million rupiahs and restitute only 2,957 million. This case was purely environmental. It wasn't purely environmental corruption, but it's related to it, because the bottom line, the issue at hand here is a breach of the environmental law, which is very, very significant. My case number 2 is a breach of reclamation case in Camino, in the same province of Kepri, a company named Jaya Anwara Korimun would like to undertake a beach reclamation project from the government of Karimun. The government then confer an operational permit without obliging the company director to have an environmental impacts analysis. So you give a project to a person without having an environmental impact analysis, which is you don't even pay attention to the damages that might be involved in the project, and the permit is granted. My case number 3 here, ladies and gentlemen, is the bioremediation conducted by Chevron, which is a big company. Chevron Pacific Indonesia in Duri, Riau, it's the same area. We all remember the smoke back in 2016 or 18, the smoke. These are environmental breach involved in these cases. But yeah, this case involves Mak Bakhtiar Abdul Fattah, General Manager of Sumatra Light South, who signed a contract with a bioremediation project with headline being Ompo. Managing Director of Sumigati Jaya Ltd, it was discovered that the CPA waste management license was overdue. It's overdue. And that Sumigata Jaya had no waste management license or was not qualified as a waste management company.
Excuse me, Dr.
Yes.
Tenan. I'm afraid that you only have 5 minutes left.
Okay,
yes.
Thank you. So it was sentenced for 6 years imprisonment and a fine of 250 by the Corruption Court on June 2013. And on October 17, 2013, the corruption case proved that Bakhtiar guilty of breaching the corruption eradication law and sentenced him to 2 years and fining 200 million rupees. And you have the last case. Okay, due to time constraints, I think it's best for me to skip that part. And ladies and gentlemen, at the conclusion, like I said, we got very, very good regulations, comprehensive regulations and laws put in place. And you have many, many breaches of these laws. And you have lenient and small and mild punishment imposed on these people. This should be, it shouldn't be, there should be a stop to it. There should be strong advancement of this law, strong punishment. You have to have a very, very proportional. The sanctions should be proportionate to the consequences. And as a conclusion to everything I just said, ladies and gentlemen, to prevent environmental pollution in Indonesia, law number 32/2009 on environmental protection sets several requirements that must be met. These requirements are not they're not followed, they're not obeyed. As a consequence, as a result, you have many breaches, you have many environmental law violation, and it is at the risk of the people's health, the destruction of the fauna and flora, the destruction of the environment, the air quality, and the destruction of life in general. So, ladies and gentlemen, what I would like to say is, it is good to have regulation, but it is important to make sure that these regulations are followed. How do we do this? One way to do it is the participation, the awareness of the population that these regulations exist, and they have to make sure that the legal system provides them with legal remedy, legal path to attacking these issues. Thank you very much. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you very much, Dr. Teknan, for the wonderful presentations. With regard to the Indonesian environmental law regime related to the corruption in Indonesia, if I may emphasize is that I'm trying to relate Dr. Tekkan's presentation with the other two speakers, is that that the regime of Indonesian environmental law can be used to tackle the pollution or environmental damage caused by the transportation company. Because as Dr. Tekkan mentioned, that both individuals and company, based from the cases that presented before, that they can also be charged with the environmental law regime in Indonesia. Next, thank you very much for all speakers for their wonderful and thought-provoking presentations. Shortly, we will be moving to the Q&A session. I see that there are many questions already. I will start the questions that addressed to Dr. Palil. But I also would like to remind all participants to type the questions to the chat room, and I'm going to read them on your behalf. First of all, the questions addressed to Dr. Palil. There's a question from Mr. Susanto from Universitas Bandar Lampung. Dr. Palil, are you still here?
Yes, I am.
Yes, there's a question that I'm going to read it. Nowadays, most countries are facing significant budget constraints in which the collection of tax and non-tax revenues is less than the government's total expenditure. And there are many critical issues on the effect of budget deficits on macroeconomics in terms of crowding out private investment, increasing interest rates, expanding money supply, and escalating consumer price, and in certain extent affect exchange rate. I would like to ask, what are the impacts of budget deficits on Malaysia's economy during the pandemic COVID-19, including in the sector for developing the sustainable transportations?
Okay, thank you very much, Susanto, for the questions. Okay, in relation to the questions, yeah, even though we are facing a deficit in our next year budget, but it is a good in terms of developing or stimulating the economy domestically, yeah, because in economic theory, in order to boost the economy, we have to what we call as stimulate, right? The consumptions, yeah, from domestic consumptions, right? So in this case, even though we are having what we call as the interest on loan, interest on debt, or cost of debt, okay, suffered by Malaysian government. However, the loan from outside may be used internally to boost the current economy domestically. Yeah, this is the first answer for the first questions. And the sector for developing the sustainable transportations, as I mentioned earlier in my presentations, the public transport in Malaysia is considered as a moderate level. Yeah, because as I said, that many Malaysian transport using cars and their own private vehicles. Yeah, so in this case, even though we are having what we call as planning to build a ECRL or ERL in Malaysia in the long strategic planning, however, we do afraid that the usage of public transport or trains are diminishing, yeah, because it may be because of the weather here is quite warm, yeah. So people are not very comfortable traveling around using public transport, as well as on average, Malaysian family have 3 or 4 kids here, so it is more expensive using the public transportation rather than their private vehicle. So I do hope I have answered Susanto's questions.
Yes, thank you so much, Dr. Palil. There are 3 more questions, but this coming from anonymous person because it just forwarded to the committee, so I couldn't mention their name. So there are 3 questions. It doesn't mention as well to whom these questions address. So I would like maybe that each presenter would like to comment on these questions. So the first one is that Indonesia has many islands. Therefore, Indonesia is known as an archipelago. Yes, it is. And in your opinion, what is the right transportation model to meet the needs of the interstate islands transportation based on an eco-friendly or sustainable transportation? And the second question, mass transportation in various cities in Indonesia that has not been maximized in inseparable from the people's mindset that private vehicles are cheaper and easier. For this reason, private vehicles continue to increase and cause various problems, including pollution, air pollution. In your opinion, do the restrictions on private vehicle ownership need to be regulated further? The third question, according to you, how to collaborate between eco-friendly and sustainable transportation with tourism in Indonesia? So maybe I would like Dr. Wijaya to address these questions first. Maybe you can also relate that to the experience of Australia or Western Australia.
Well, thank you, Bu Erna. Well, I must say that to answer this question, that I must say that it will be what are the best mode of transport for the Indonesia that as an archipelago country. It will be depends on the situations. Compared to Australia, Australia is not an archipelago. Of course, if in Australia, using public transport probably for train, if you are traveling interstate, is not favorable. People are often opt for using the air travel because it is cheaper. It's much cheaper than if you are traveling by train from Perth to Sydney, because Perth to Sydney is only have one train that is operates from Perth to Sydney, that is the Indian Pacific, that it's quite expensive. And yes, not many people are using the train for interstate travel in Australia. They are more using air travel. But for Indonesia, it will be depend on this in situation. Let's say in Java, in Java, it's I think the train is still have a substantial mode of transport. If train is still a substantial mode of transport, given the condition of Java Island or the Sumatra, that's almost the same. But if you are traveling between islands, it will be depends on the on on the purpose of the travel. If you are carrying goods, probably, and of course, if you traveling inter-island, it will be much better if you are using ships or sea travel. But yeah, but both they are all still a public transport. If you are traveling inter-island, if you are as a passenger, probably it's much efficient if you are using air travel. If you are traveling probably from Jakarta to Medan, of course, air travel is much more efficient. And yeah, if I'm not saying that there is a one particular mode of transportation that is much better among the rest, but it will be depend on the situation. Thank you.
Great, thank you so much. Maybe Dr. Palil would like to add something on that?
Okay, I just go brief how to answer the 3 questions. The first one was, since there are a lot of islands in Indonesia, what are the best mode of transport? So I do suggest that the best is using what we call as land transport. For example, building more bridges, for example. Okay, if there are some islands nearby and you have to build up more bridges, okay, and therefore you can stimulate your tourism industry, of course, and you can connect among the islands. And for the second one, is it necessary to limiting car ownership in Indonesia? Okay, you can have limitation on car ownership, if you are in a small country. Okay, for example, in Singapore, yes, because there are very limited resources and so forth. But if we are looking at the geographical area in Indonesia, I think limiting the car ownership is not suitable yet. Okay, so you can buy as much cars as you want right now. Yeah, and of course, if you are willing to limit the ownership of cars, make sure public transport link is very, very efficient. Okay, we can refer Australia, for example, Europe countries. They have very efficient and very effective transportation link. Okay, and then number 3 is eco-friendly, environmental. Yes, we do admit that the increasing number of cars is positively correlated with number of pollutions, right? But I would say that for the time being, our environmental issues is still under control. Okay, and we also have to think right now that uh, we try our best to save our environment. Okay, but if you are saying that pollution of cars become the main issues, we may uh, turn into electrical cars. Yeah, so that the number of pollution would be at minimum level. Okay, I think I have answered the 3 questions for that. Thank you very much.
Bu Erna?
Yes, Pak
Yeah,
Vijaya.
yeah. I would say that I will agree that I want to add something to
Yes, please.
to
Yes.
what Pak Rizal Palil already have mentioned. So, in my opinion, that developed country is not measured by how many poor people have cars, but it is measured by how many rich people are using public transport. So, if you want to be a developed country, so you must show that so many rich people are using public transport. It's not how many poor people are using have their own cars. Thank you, Pak. Thank you.
Yes.
That is a good point from Pak Wijaya. Yeah, I agree with that.
Yes, I do agree with that too. I mean, I've been living in the Netherlands for 6 years, and that and how great is their transportation system is, and of course, we all would like to have this kind of transportation in Indonesia, but maybe we will have it later on or soon. We'll see. Okay, maybe Dr. Tegnan, do you want to add something on that with regard maybe which transportation system is best with regard to the pollution level that can be produced by the transportations?
Yeah, thank you. I would like to respond to 2 points raised by the person who asked this question. The first point would be the best transportation system. I think, given the geographic situations in Indonesia, the best, in my opinion, would be air transportation, of course, because throughout so many islands, you got water everywhere. So building bridges, first of all, it's going to take more budget, and it's going to take more energies and time. I'm not saying that air transportation, which means having more planes and stuff like that, will be cheaper, but it will be a lot time efficient, and it will be costly, but it'll be time efficient. And one way to do so is to reducing the cost of airfares, cost of air. Okay, we see this in Europe, in France, in everywhere in Western Europe. You have this company called Ryanair. With €5 you can fly. Why not doing this in Indonesia? Why not doing this here? It's just simple. You've seen, is it impossible? I think no. COVID-19, I won't say unfortunately, but it came and showed that many things are possible. Flying from Jakarta to West Sumatra used to be, somewhere near 1 million, 1 million. But these days, since COVID-19 showed up, now people can fly with 400. Was that possible all this time along? Why people did not have that to begin with? People can make sacrifices. So reducing airfares and allowing more people, to have these facilities, it's feasible. rather than wasting time on building bridges and more energies and stuff like that. It could be possible, but is it really what Indonesia needs? And my second point would be on the limited car ownership. This then I take the example of I agree with Pa Punky and also Pa Professor Moriza. It's a problem of issue of mentality. You cannot say you don't buy this kind of car, you don't have this, don't own this much car, this many cars. Sorry, it's about mentality. When rich people cross the bridge and start thinking like average people and taking public transportation, it will be the thing. It'll do more good to Indonesia, like we see in Europe. And would this encourage tourism in Indonesia? I think yes, because you can see those tourists coming to Indonesia, they're not driving in car, they use public transportation. My first time coming to Indonesia, I used a bus. So what the government needs to do is to make this efficient, to make it very attractive. Because take the bus in, for example, in Jakarta, really, I'm not lying here. It's not very attractive at all. The experience, it won't really give you any sense of, willing to repeat that on your next visit. To be short, I think these are my opinion on the issue raised. There's always possibility to do better, and the government needs to make sure that these possibilities are best, explored. Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you very much for all the three speakers. The three speakers actually has their own opinion that Pak Palil would like to have more bridges with the land transportation, but Pak Pungki also suggests that it also depends on our purpose. Like if we have a lot of stuffs or a lot of things would like to carry with us, we can also use sea transportation. And also the Pak Teknan also would like to have more air transportation systems. So these three could actually be combined together to have a more sustainable and eco-friendly transportations. I do have one person raise her hand. Maybe she would like to ask the questions directly. Thessalonica, are you still with us, or you still want to have your questions? Hello, Thessalonica, are you still with us? I still see her name though in the participant list, but maybe she's not there anymore. There's another one, Ferry Irawan. Ferry Irawan, do you still want to deliver your questions directly? Okay, it seems that they might not on the desk, on their computer. Maybe I can continue with another questions that came up in the chat room. There's a questions from Agruna Renentera. I hope I pronounce the name correctly. He or she, a student of Faculty of Law, Universitas 11 Maret, and would like to ask questions addressed to Dr. Palil and Dr. Teknan. The first one goes to Dr. Palil. What kind of strategies or implementation of the corporate social responsibility in Malaysia? And then the second one to Dr. Teknan. How is the French government efforts to protect the environment by regulations? I hope that's clear. Maybe yes. I could give the floor to Dr. Palil first.
Okay, thank you very much for the questions. Yeah, CSR in Malaysia is initially will be provided or will be exempted from tax, from company perspective. However, during the COVID-19, the exemption of doing CSR has been extended for a while in order to encourage companies to give more donations to nations who are affected in COVID-19. Yeah. So in order to increase the CSR for Malaysian perspective, the IRB or in Indonesia can be called as Directoral General Pajak, yeah, has been implementing an exemption specifically for companies who are giving their product or giving their cash into the affected community in Malaysia. So this is the strategy. I do hope I have answered the questions. I pass to Dr. Teknan to answer the next question, perhaps.
Okay, thank you, Prof. The question is the situation of the environmental protection in France. I think this is a very big, the scope of this question is very wide, but I'll try my best to raise here some significant steps taken by the French government. First, you have in France the age of the vehicles, the cars, everything used, it's regulated by age. So if you're driving a Peugeot, which is more than 10 years old, the government will intervene and tell you should, get it out of the street. And importing cars, if you want to import cars from other countries, there's a regulations. It's not just about taxes and and all of that, but also how old is the car? So if it's more than 5 years, you are going to be denied. So it's not to make the French people richer. It's not to prove that people are more they are richer in France, but to protect the environment because of the emission of the carbon, to limit that. So, and there's another aspect that I would like to point out, which is the sanctions aspect in France. So whatever there's a breach in the environmental law, anybody can go and complain, and the government takes this very seriously. And the cases are very, very rare in France. I mean, on the French territory, it's very non-existent. But because these French companies, they operate overseas in other countries like in Africa, where the law is very lenient there. So you can see more, but on the French soils, these cases happen in very, very few, numbers. So to sum up what I just said, it's about sanctioning, not just putting in place regulation, but stern and binding sanctions on those who commit in such behavior. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Dr. Teknan, for summarizing French environmental law, because it could take years to study that, absolutely. And also that you have additional one, which is the European environmental law, that could also ages to study that too. But at least the French government is also committed to have a more sustainable environment with the adoption of some rules and regulations. I think there are no more questions. Wait a minute, there are some message. Oh, there's one more questions from Mr. Agus Rianto, my colleague from Faculty of Law Universitas 11 Maret. He would like to address the questions to Dr. Wijaya. And the question is, how does the Australian government protect persons with disabilities in the field of transportation? So, Dr. Wijaya, please, if you would like to comment on that.
Thank you, Pak. Thank you.
It's okay.
Yes, about the disability protections in public transportation in Australia. I must say that the government across the states and across the government in Australia are very, very thoughtful to the people with disability. Let's say if they are using buses, well, you can Google it in YouTube or find it in YouTube, how people with disability still can use buses. Their buses are specifically designed. Every buses that operates in all Australia are specifically designed so so people with disability can still access the bus. The bus will lower itself, and then it will there will be a ramp, so people with a wheelchair or with wheelchair can go easily to the buses. It's also with trains. There are it's very easy for people with disability to travel everywhere in Australia, in Western Australia particularly. You can every elevator is available in every station, and every buses are every trains. People with disability can access every trains, and it's quite convenient. Not only train, even ferry as well. Not only train and buses. So it's very easy for people with disability to access public transport in Australia. Thank you. Thank you, Bu Era.
Yes, thank you so much, Pak Dr. Wijaya, for the answers. Yes, it's amazing how they really regulate or arrange this kind of mode transportation for the disability person. I never been in Australia. I would love to, but at least in Europe, they also have a very thoughtful arrangement for these persons, so that they can still free to go everywhere. Here in Indonesia, it will be difficult for you if you have such disabilities to travel. Okay, I think there are no more questions in the chat box. And for the last session, I would like to invite the three speakers to have a closing statement, 2 minutes each, maybe. I will start with Dr. Teknan, please.
Okay,
Dr. Teknan.
thank you. Thank you for starting with me. As a constitutional law professor, my remark will be, we have rights. These rights are enshrined in the Constitution. The Constitution provides the Undang-Undang Dasar 1945. It's very comprehensive and very elaborative. In my opinion, it's one of the best constitution in the world. And the Article 1, Section 3 of this constitution says, Indonesia adalah negara hukum, which means that in Indonesia, the rights, the liberty of the people is guaranteed. But make no mistake, ladies and gentlemen, dear students, these rights are not granted. Don't take them for granted. You have to fight for them. You have to go out and participate. You have to open your eyes and see what's going on that is wrong in Indonesia. And the government also have the rights to intervene wherever they see a disorder and they see chaos. But this doesn't mean you should give up, because democracy is all about going out there and fighting for your right. Environmental protection is no different from this. You always have to keep fighting, because these corporations, they are smart. They have the best lawyer. They can twist the wrong cases. But with your determination, you can bring down all of this and live in a very peaceful, clean environment. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Teknan. I would like to invite Dr. Palil for the closing statement.
All right, thank you, Ibu Erna. Okay, with regards to the theme of this conference, I would highlight that whatever policy that being made by any government throughout the world, okay, I do believe that please do very careful evaluations on the impact of the environment. Yeah, there are some issues happen, okay, not today, probably within the next 5 years or 10 years, the effect of the environment is very huge. Yeah, and at that point we cannot turn back, or we cannot rechange the policy. Okay, so most of us, especially in government perspective, they believe that they just think for the short run only. Okay, that's why they have certain policy, even though the policy is affecting the environment very harsh, but they still proceed with that policy. So I conclude that in any government, especially in Malaysia, Indonesia as well, Okay, please do care about our environment for our next generations. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Khalil. I invite Dr. Wijaya to give the closing statement.
Thank you. Terima kasih, Bu Erna. Well, just a short, my closing statement is I must say that developing eco-friendly and sustainable public transportation will be depends pretty much on the political will of the government. So the policies must be established, must be made to encourage the uses of public transport. The governments made policies that enable the development of a comfortable public transport for everyone, for every people, for every citizen. So like I said before, developed country is not measured by how many people who have, how many poor people who have cars, but how many rich people that uses public transport. Okay, that will be all. Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you so much for all the three speakers. I would like also to thank to all the participants who have been actively engaged in the webinar. It has been a fruitful discussion, and we, on behalf of the committee, were very grateful with the participating with the participation of the participants. I would like to sum up. Well, it's not actually a summary, but since the three speakers has taken a different path or different approach related to both transportations, taxes, as well as the environmental issue. But if I may take a silver line between the three speakers, that the need to develop eco-friendly and sustainable transportation is unavoidable, especially for the comfort of customers, for the citizens, I mean, as well as for the environmental protections. Finally, on behalf of the committee, I would like to thank to everyone again for the active participation. And we do hope that this international webinar will bring some insights on this specific and crucial issue. As for that purpose of the discussion has been achieved, please give a round of applause for all three speakers, the participants, and the committee who has worked enormously hard to prepare this webinar. Yes, thank you very much for the applause. And as all the session has been conducted this afternoon, I would like to officially close this international conference. Thank you very much again, and have a great weekend. Stay safe, everyone. Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you for all. See you again.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very
everybody.
much.
Stay safe.
Thank you very much.
Bye-bye.
Stay safe.
Yeah, bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
You.
Goodbye.